Good evening. And this is day 4 of Donald Trump You Are Fired protest campaign. For the record, I think it's an awful thing to come to pass that people, for us to even feel compelled to do things like this, you know. I think it's wise if we can to try to enjoy our work. I feel like I remember reading about, they asked Queen Elizabeth II in her time, like, how do you do it? All these appearances. And I feel like I recall, because it was so well said, that she said, I'll tell you what you do. I'm paraphrasing, but I'll tell you what you do. You got to find one thing that you really enjoy. Maybe the flowers are very nice, maybe this, maybe that, but you find something you enjoy and you focus in on that. And that plugs directly into some of my earliest training in performance in theater. Excuse me. One of my first teachers, my first vocal teacher actually, is an actor who was in the film The Princess Bride. Her name is Betsy, and she's only in the very beginning of the film, but it was really incredible. And I asked her a question about how do you deal with it and you have a relationship on stage or on the screen where it's just not, for you personally, you're not interested in, like, what do you do? How do you get around that? And I remember her telling me, even though I was very young, I think I was 17 years old, I remember her telling me to just find something about the person that you do like. Maybe it's their forearms or their wrists or just their eyebrows or something, their eyes. Maybe they have pretty eyes, and just focus on that. It's exactly the same thing. Different details, but it's in essence the exact same thing Queen Elizabeth said. So I'm here chilling with my plants. This is my other begonia. This is a scarlet begonia. It's gonna need some water tomorrow, but you can, if you want, you can say hi. It is alive, so it's silly to think that it's not conscious on some level. I set up like this tonight because I want to read something to you guys. This has been on my mind a lot lately. It's going to take a little time. I guess I've spent more time with this lately than I did with the Declaration of Independence. I think maybe I mentioned the whole thing about consanguinity last episode. I can't really quite remember at this point. But if I didn't, I think I did. It means shared blood, like our shared bloodlines. I'm glad that I didn't know what that meant. It's a good point of instruction. I want to read you a very famous poem. It's old. It's not quite as old as this country, but it was written by a writer who lived during this country's infancy. I think he was about 6 years old when the Declaration of Independence was signed. Before I start on this, I want to say a couple of things. If you're reading old literature, anytime before the late 1800s, there was no such thing as sight reading, as reading in your mind, like quietly reading. That didn't exist. Everything that was written was meant to be read out loud. So if it's older than like circa 1900, it, for some reason, I find personally, is easier to understand if we read it out loud. I had a hard time getting through Paradise Lost, for instance, which is without a doubt, in my opinion, the greatest poem ever natively written in English. It is even like, slightly, I almost hold it in slightly higher esteem than most of what Shakespeare wrote just because of its scope and because it was written by a blind man in the same century in which Shakespeare's life ended. It was first published in 1667. Anyway, I'm not gonna go into that right now, but maybe another time. When we're reading old things, though, if we're reading them to a modern audience and we see things like, instead of ever, they'll have written E''ER. Well, if you aren't aware, they did that because there was a meter. It was the style of the time to have a certain number of syllables in each line. It was lyrical poetry. Whether it rhymed or not, it didn't matter. And so to make it fit the meter, a lot of the time what would happen is like syllables would be clipped like that. But for a modern audience, like one of the first ones of those I'm going to read is wheresoever. Like wheresoever. One of the lessons I was taught in school for this sort of thing, you will alienate a modern audience. The more that a modern audience hears that it feels like we don't understand, the quicker people tune out. So I was taught, and I think this is very, very wise, don't say air for E''ER. It's a clue. It's cluing you into that's supposed to be said quickly. So you don't say wheresoever because people are like, I don't know what that means. You'll alienate the audience. It's the opposite of the point of playing. Which Shakespeare wrote, actually, very, very beautifully put, of course. The purpose of playing, whose end from the first end now was and is to hold, as it were, the mirror up to nature, to show virtue her feature, scorn her own image, and the very age and body of the time his form and pressure. And he goes on. That's from Hamlet. But so not ere or wheresoever, ever. Wheresoever. Just quickly. Nothing is lost. Now, I'm a purist when it comes to this stuff. I almost interrupted Shakespeare in the Park one time in Los Angeles because they were doing... What were they doing? I cannot recall. They might have been doing Macbeth. And I think they were. And the porter scene, they let the porter start ad-libbing. Like basically doing stand-up comedy. No. And I almost got up. I don't think I knew the lines as well back then, but I almost got up, and from that same speech in Hamlet's, known colloquially as Hamlet's advice to the players, at the end he says, and let those that play your clowns speak no more than is set down for them, for there be of them they that will themselves laugh, to set on some quantity of barren spectators to laugh too, though in the meantime some necessary question of the play be then to be considered. That's villainous and shows the most pitiful ambition in the fool that uses it. Might have forgotten one in there. I think that's about it. Anyway, that was like sacrilege to me. So I'm just offering that as like I'm at the deep end of the hardcore pool when it comes to stuff like this. But it's a very valid point. We don't want to push people away. The point of this is to bring people together and to explore serious and important questions about life and the human experience and existence, etc. et alia. So I'm going to read you tonight, and I want to make a point, and this does have to do with Donald Trump. I'm going to read to you Ode on Intimations of Immortality from Recollections of Early Childhood by William Wordsworth. It's such a beautiful poem. Anyway, without further ado, because I don't want this to wind up being an hour-long video again. It's already like 10 minutes. Okay. I will do what I can with this and try to make it a faithful reading. Oh. There was a time when meadow, grove, and stream, the earth, and every common sight to me did seem apparelled in celestial light, the glory and the freshness of a dream. It is not now as it hath been of yore. Turn wheresoever I may, by night or day, the things which I have seen I now can see no more. Oh, there was one more point I wanted to make. I'll start over. I'm not going to harp on this too much, and it's not that I'm not interested or this isn't something that I think is real, because it is definitely, but I'm not a big fan of words that name something divine. I'm especially not a big fan of the word God. I think that's a very divisive word. It is foremost in American culture and English-speaking culture in the world used as an expletive, OMG. So I'm going to say that, but it's really important when we use loaded language, loaded spiritual terminology. It's really important to sort of qualify it. What are we talking about? Because I could be talking about one thing and somebody from a different tribe could be using the same word and talking about the opposite thing. So I am faithfully repeating and reciting a public domain poem that was written. I actually am not 100% sure. This copy doesn't exactly have the date on this, but that's interesting. It was written around the turn of the 19th century. Let's just say that, because that's accurate. He passed away in 1850 before the Civil War. So anyway, I'm going to say this word. I don't like this word. I try to avoid saying it. I think this is the cause of a lot of wars, a lot of violence, a lot of bloodshed, is we dispensed with polytheism, and suddenly we have had centuries of, we didn't learn much, we're still squabbling over the sounds that we make and the symbols that we use to talk about something beyond us that, well, I'm not going to go into it, but so I'm going to say that word. When I say it, I am talking about everything you have ever thought, seen, felt, tasted, touched, heard. There is nothing that you can possibly imagine that is not encompassed by that umbrella, which is another reason why I have an issue with the word, is to try to cram all of this infinite everything into a monosyllable, to me, is the essence of vanity. What it means to take in vain something is like, everything is a part of the name of this. You can't make a vibration in your throat or scribble something on paper that isn't part of the real name of what we are. You are also part of us. Just like I'm a grain of sand on a beach here, and I'm talking about we, the whole beach. We're all the same. Human being is a human being. A living creature is a living creature. This may not move around like we do, and it doesn't have eyes and a face, but this also is a living thing. Anyway, but that's me. Everybody has right to their own opinion, and I understand it would be arrogant of me not to respect that there's more than one way to eat a Reese's peanut butter cup, and no wrong way and no right way, so long as we're not hurting ourselves and others. But anyway, I'm very sensitive about people using words like that, because a lot of the time nowadays in my life especially, I've experienced people are just not thinking about what they're talking about when they use words like that, and they'll just rattle them off. And then if I pump the brakes and I'm like, okay, let's hold on here. What are you talking about? They get flustered so quickly because maybe they're a part of a culture that doesn't welcome independent thinking. There's a lot of little conclaves like that around. I'm not going to name names, but there are certain persuasions where it is worse. And the two that I'm thinking of do not like to see themselves as two sides of the same coin, but they are. Fanaticism and blind faith are very dangerous things, especially in a world like this that's pressurizing and with overgrown toys like these smartphones and with all kind and manner of mind-altering substances in the mix. And how many people do you know that have orange prescription bottles somewhere in their home that they're hitting up all the time? Not me. Some people, you have no choice. You have like some serious, but like I'm talking about, like, did your doctor ask you if you exercise before they prescribed you antidepressants? Like, did you try something else and that's a last resort? Or did they just write you a script because they give them money and they get kickbacks from Big Pharma? Anyway, I don't have any strong opinions about anything. Trust me. Anyway, so I really wanted to say that, and now I've just spent several more minutes, but it's okay. It's supposed to be happening this way. Trust me. Ode on Intimations of Immortality from Recollections of Early Childhood. There was a time when meadow, grove, and stream, the earth and every common sight to me did seem apparelled in celestial light, the glory and the freshness of a dream. It is not now as it hath been of yore. Turn wheresoever I may, by night or day, the things which I have seen, I now can see no more. The rainbow comes and goes, and lovely is the rose. The moon doth with delight look round her when the heavens are bare. Waters on a starry night are beautiful and fair. The sunshine is a glorious birth. But yet I know, wherever I go, that there hath passed away a glory from the earth. Now, while the birds thus sing a joyous song, and while the young lambs bound as to the tabor's sound, to me alone there came a thought of grief. A timely utterance gave that thought relief, and I again am strong. The cataracts blow their trumpets from the steep. No more shall grief of mine the season wrong. I hear the echoes through the mountains throng. The winds come to me from the fields of sleep, and all the earth is gay. Land and sea give themselves up to jollity, and with the heart of May doth every beast keep holiday. Thou child of joy, shout round me, let me hear thy shouts, thou happy shepherd boy. Ye blessed creatures, I have heard the call ye to each other make. I see the heavens laugh with you in your jubilee. My heart is at your festival, my head hath its coronal. The fullness of your bliss I feel it all. Oh, evil day, if I were sullen while earth herself is adorning this sweet May morning, and the children are culling on every side in 1,000 valleys far and wide fresh flowers, while the sun shines warm, and the babe leaps up on his mother's arm. I hear with joy I hear, but there's a tree of many, one, a single field, which I have looked upon. Both of them speak of something that is gone. The pansy at my feet doth the same tale repeat. Whither is fled the visionary gleam? Where is it now, the glory and the dream? Our birth is but a sleep and a forgetting. The soul that rises with us, our life's star, hath had elsewhere its setting, and cometh from afar. Not in entire forgetfulness, and not in utter nakedness, but trailing clouds of glory do we come from God who is our home. Heaven lies about us in our infancy. Shades of the prison house begin to close upon the growing boy, but he beholds the light and whence it flows, he sees it in his joy. The youth who daily farther from the east must travel, still is nature's priest, and by the vision splendid is on his way attended. At length the man perceives it die away, and fade into the light of common day. Earth fills her lap with pleasures of her own, yearnings she hath in her own natural kind, and even with something of a mother's mind, and no unworthy aim. The homely nurse doth all she can to make her foster child, her inmate man, forget the glories he hath known, and that imperial palace whence he came. Behold the child among his newborn blisses, a 6 years' darling of a pygmy's size. See where amid work of his own hand he lies, fretted by sallies of his mother's kisses, with light upon him from his father's eyes. See at his feet some little plan or chart, some fragment from his dream of human life, shaped by himself with newly learned art. A wedding or a festival, a mourning or a funeral, and this hath now his heart. And unto this he frames his song. Then will he fit his tongue to dialogues of business, love, or strife. But it will not be long ere this be thrown aside, and with new joy and pride the little actor cons another part, filling from time to time his humorous stage with all the persons down to palsied age that life brings with her in her equipage, as if his whole vocation were endless imitation. Thou whose exterior semblance doth belie thy soul's immensity, thou best philosopher who yet dost keep thy heritage, thou eye among the blind, that, deaf and silent, readest the eternal deep, haunted forever by the eternal mind, mighty prophet, seer blessed, on whom those truths rest which we are toiling all our lives to find, in darkness lost, the darkness of the grave. Thou, over whom thy immortality broods like the day, a master over a slave, a presence which is not to be put by, to whom the grave is but a lonely bed, without the sense of sight of day or the warm light, a place of thoughts where we in waiting lie. Thou little child, yet glorious in the might of heaven-born freedom on thy being's height, why with such earnest pains dost thou provoke the years to bring the inevitable yoke, thus blindly with thy blessedness at strife? Full soon thy soul shall have her earthly freight, and custom lie upon thee with a weight heavy as frost and deep almost as life. Oh, joy, that in our embers is something that doth live, that nature yet remembers what was so fugitive. The thought of our past years in me doth breed perpetual benediction, not indeed for that which is most worthy to be blessed, delight and liberty, the simple creed of childhood, whether busy or at rest, with new-fledged hope still fluttering in his breast. Not for these I raise the song of thanks and praise, but for those obstinate questionings of sense and outward things, fallings from us, vanishings, blank misgivings of a creature moving about in worlds not realized, high instincts before which our mortal nature did tremble like a guilty thing surprised. but for those first affections, those shadowy recollections, which, be they what they may, are yet the fountain light of all our day, are yet a master light of all our seeing. Uphold us, cherish, and have power to make our noisy years seem moments in the being of the eternal silence, truths that wake to perish never, which neither listlessness nor mad endeavor, nor man nor boy, nor all that is at enmity with joy can utterly abolish or destroy. Hence, in a season of calm weather, though inland far we be, our souls have sight of that immortal sea which brought us hither, can in a moment travel thither, and see the children sport upon the shore, and hear the mighty waters rolling evermore. Then sing, ye birds, sing, sing a joyous song, and let the young lambs bound as to the tabor's sound. We in thought will join your throng, ye that pipe and ye that play, ye that through your hearts today feel the gladness of the May. What though the radiance which was once so bright be now forever taken from my sight? Though nothing can bring back the hour of splendor in the grass, of glory in the flower, we will grieve not, rather find strength in what remains behind, in the primal sympathy which having been must ever be, in the soothing thoughts that spring out of human suffering, in the faith that looks through death, in years that bring the philosophic mind. And oh, ye fountains, meadows, hills, and groves, forebode not any severing of our loves. Yet in my heart of hearts I feel your might. I only have relinquished one delight, to live beneath your more habitual sway. I love the brooks which down their channels fret, even more than when I tripped lightly as they. The innocent brightness of a newborn day is lovely yet. The clouds that gather round the setting sun do take a sober coloring from an eye that hath kept watch over man's mortality. Another race hath been, and other palms are won. Thanks to the human heart by which we live, thanks to its tenderness, its joys and fears. To me, the meanest flower that blows can give thoughts that do often lie too deep for tears. The reason I read that to you, and I don't want this to be such a long video, but 30 minutes. The reason I read that to you is because I want you, even if you felt like, oh, I didn't understand that, or I all those words, hath and doth and all this stuff, it's just an old way of saying have and do. I want you to feel the way I feel what is being lost now. This guy, it was not enough that he hired a yacht collector, yacht as an enormous boat, last time around to run the Department of Education into the ground, in my opinion. Now, it's just an open assault. Let's just dismantle the Department of Education. He is so wicked. He understands that when people are poorly educated, they're easier to manipulate and control. And it's an unfortunate cocktail of pride that a lot of people who are not well educated have with not being well educated. They're very proud of what they do know, and they get a white knuckle grip on their religious beliefs. But what he's talking about in that poem is he touches on so many different things that we're dealing with specifically in this hour of history right now. It's worth visiting with it. It's free. It's in the public domain. Ode on Intimations of Immortality from Recollections of Early Childhood. It's a very profound poem. It's very beautiful. They quote it, actually, if you enjoy the film A River Runs Through It. It's the first time I was ever exposed to it. They quote it. I think it's that last part that they quote. That's how I first became aware of it, actually, I think, because I very much love that film. I just want you to understand that back then, learning was popular. It's not now. It's not as popular. I think it peaked in like the late 1800s and early 20th century. It was early mid 20th century. As technology has arisen, that's progress, but there's been a degeneration of education, and now the education system is like endangered. Have any of you seen that picture of what the White House looks like now after this fiasco he just pulled? We are all paying for it. It looks like he's building a casino next door. This Congress will not fix this. It's time to start talking about Convention of States. You may not know this, but it's written into the Constitution that if enough states get together, we can call for a Convention of States. And I heard today, actually, someone had brought this up that said they wanted this to happen every 25 years, our founding fathers. Now, I haven't verified that, and if that's not true, I will be corrected. I will always yield to the truth. But it came from someone that I trust, that I see almost every day. And I thought that was very profound also. But enough states get together, all that we can do is propose constitutional amendments, but then if 38 states ratify it, now you might be like, yeah, good luck. That means you gotta bring in some states from certain areas of this country. That I think there are more people there who are fed up than we realize. They're just part of a culture where they are so dominated by popular opinion and so beset by dwindling education and conditions that they don't realize that someone eventually will come along like Donald Trump, who sees how gullible and how manipulative, easy to manipulate they are, and starts to channel the popular opinion in dark directions. There are pockets of people in this country where if especially like say a woman were to stand up excuse me, and have her own opinion or think independently about old stories or old ideas or even what the pastor said Sunday morning. She might be met with physical violence from her husband, her brother or brothers, or even her father, no matter how old she is. That's real. And if you think that's not true, then let me tell you about how I went back east to the East Coast 2 years ago when I was running around the country basically half in a state of panic for 5 months fighting these real estate companies, which by the way, I haven't said anything about this yet. That case did not get thrown out. It didn't. I waited I think it was 17 months for the court to rule, but didn't get thrown out. It's proceeding. So I'll be talking about that later, but right now, because I have to do a motion response again this month. I have a couple more weeks I have to do it. I went back east to a town I grew up in, basically a beach town, with a family member, not blood relative, but by law, who was literally born in this town. I have one of my oldest best friends was born in this town. I've spent a lot of time in this town. I wasn't dressed in a Technicolor dream coat. I wasn't wearing a rainbow flag. I was dressed a bit brightly, but it was summer. It was 2 years ago. This month, actually, I think. Yeah, it was 2 years. It was almost exactly 2 years ago right now. And I went down to this town, and I was out at night, taking a break after working on the law all day. And I wound up getting chased by my own countrymen in a beat-up old red pickup truck. They were chasing me. I was scared to go back to my Airbnb because it was a very old man, very nice old man. I think of him like a brown wizard. If you know Lord of the Rings, he was kind of like a brown wizard. And I didn't want to lead them back there, but they were throwing things at me and yelling racial slurs at me that don't even remotely apply to my complexion. And I remember thinking, heavens help us if they get out of the car. Because I was very, very upset that I had to be there doing that and that was happening to me. And it wasn't the only time and only place I was attacked in this country. Driving around, did about 33,000 miles in 5 months. It's like 1.3 times around the world in 5 months. But I was attacked. Me. I'm 6'3". I have lost some weight recently, but I'm big and strong enough that most of the time people won't risk it. So you may doubt me when I say that people in certain areas of this country could be in risk of serious bodily harm for having a different opinion than the popular opinion about X, Y, Z, or God. But it's true. I grew up in a place like that is now like that. This festering ignorance and xenophobia has broken loose. Kind of like a lanced boil, all this like nasty stuff is coming out. Donald Trump, in a million years, Donald Trump in centuries of life could never even on his best day even scratch the surface of what Wordsworth has done there. He doesn't understand that. He wouldn't even take the time to try to understand it. I don't think. He has lately now I heard from Maggie Haberman and I'm sorry, brother, that other reporter's name. They wrote a book. They were talking about being in the Oval Office with him and how he brought out this document that was saying he's the most powerful president ever, and comparing him to, like, such winning examples of human life from the past, like Stalin, Hitler, Mao Zedong, Genghis Khan. That's how the guy sees himself. He sees himself as the boss. But I beat him on Twitter. I went round for round with him, 100 rounds on Twitter, and he wouldn't, and I got under his skin. A lot of the time we find cowards, real cowards, they're all bluster. Bullies are really cowards, they're all bluster, Like a big dog run up, and then like run up on like a wild animal, and the wild animal bares its teeth or really growls, and the dog like, and like goes away. I think the word coward actually comes from, I have to look this up, but if I remember, I feel like I looked it up once, and etymologically I think it might actually come from French, and it has something to do with like literally like the root of the word means like a dog tucking its tail between its legs. I think if you put me into any kind of debate or social discussion with any of Donald Trump's sycophants or he himself, they don't stand a chance. Not a chance. I can slice and dice and run circles around them all day long. Don't need to know any policy information or anything they talked about in the skiff the other day. I don't need to know any of that. Because this is a question of basic morality and basic education. Why would you dismantle the education department if you were not trying to take advantage of people? There's no answer for that, no excuse. It's worse that he's as old as he is, because we are speculating and seeing evidence of cognitive decline, which is basically, like, in my opinion, like exacerbating all of someone's qualities. Anyway, I gotta go. I made the blunder. I made the choice of I was having some soup before I did this. Some starting to gain back some weight now, finally. And I made the choice of putting on a very beautiful Japanese film that I haven't watched in a while and starting it. And I won't finish it today, but I really want to watch some of it. So that sounds selfish, but I've given a lot of time today. I'm gonna go. Say goodbye, Begonia. Bye. Scarlet Begonia, Rex Begonia. Oh, by the way, if you get one of these, don't let your animals eat it. It's not lethal, but it'll irritate their mouths, and don't chew on it yourself. They're slightly toxic. Anyway, Donald Trump, you are fired. Day 4. We'll see you again tomorrow for day 5. Oh, last thing I want to say is, I don't wish ruin or harm upon anybody, but I'm very grateful that soon I will be able to say rest in peace to Mitch McConnell. Maybe we'll talk more about Mitch McConnell tomorrow. In my opinion, he's the worst politician this country's ever produced. You might say, what about Trump? Trump is a beast. McConnell is one of the ones who let him off the chain. I don't think Trump would be a president right now if it were not for Mitch McConnell. Yeah, so anyway, that's it for now. 44:44. Okay, good night.